right, man. Oh, so audio good?
Yeah. Everything is all good. What's going on, everybody? JV wins, Dogon SS. We are here for another edition of the Conscious Approach video series on YouTube. Thank you to everybody who is tuning in. As you can see, I got the T-ball in hand, so I'm ready to duke it out. I am ready to duke it out, debate panel style. So we'll see how things go. Thank you to everybody who is tuning into the channel. As always, we would like to thank you in advance for supporting logical content. And if you appreciate the commentary in this or any other video that we publish to this channel, go ahead and do your boys a big old solid. Hit that subscribe and like button. Or if you don't, all good. But, enjoy the video nevertheless. So, with that out of the way, we are going to go ahead and get started with something very interesting that we found on the interwebs this week. So, famed relationship coach, counsel person, content creator, quote unquote, Kevin Samuels, in light of his death in the past year, has incurred a lot of interesting comments posthumously from people who, now that he is gone, want to validate the merit of what it is that he used to do. And, for anyone who is unaware, he wasn't necessarily a social scientist or anything like that. Kevin Samuels was just a polished content creator who made videos dissecting and analyzing modern relationship trends and habits and behaviors. And he would often highlight some of his points by bringing on guests to his show to kind of sort of illustrate some of the various points that he was trying to make. Various themes such as high value men became more proliferated due to his, as well as other content creators' contribution to this particular context. Tragically, he passed away last year, but that has not stopped people from going in on some of the merit of his commentary. And we have found a new example of that with this minister fellow. So this guy, whose name is Minister Yahdan Yada, I'm hoping that I pronounced his name correctly. This is the latest person to kind of suggest that the rhetoric of Kevin Samuels needs to die for good, along with the man himself. So what we are going to do is we are going to play this video of his reasoning as to why Kevin Samuels needs to go away. Now, this guy claims that Kevin Samuels is responsible for destroying the black family dynamic, and you can see the title here in this clip that we are about to play. So essentially, he is saying Kevin Samuels needs to go away. He destroyed the black family dynamic. So that's pretty much all we need to do to set this one up. We'll go ahead and play the clip, and then we will opine afterwards.
It's time to bury the ghost of Kevin Samuels with Kevin Samuels. Kevin Samuels was a terrorist to the family dynamic, to the family structure. He was a terrorist. He convinced weak men to be weaker men. Any man that convinces a man that he's the prize and the woman isn't is your enemy. A good woman deserves everything on this earth and in the universe. She gives us children. She brings us peace, harmony, joy. She rubs our back. She turns our house into a home, our groceries into a meal. She nurtures our children. She nurtures us, even when we're in our ego and our pride. And you allow Kevin Samuels to ask your woman what she brings to the table? The woman is the table. But the majority of you men have,
oh my goodness,
on that table. You're deficient. You're financially deficient. You're emotionally deficient. You're spiritually deficient. And your masculinity is deficient. So if you want to pass like Kevin Samuels with multiple failed marriages, leaving a world where your children don't even respect you, of course follow him. But that man's ghost needs to be put in the grave where it belongs, because it's not beneficial to us as a whole. The woman needs to be uplifted. The woman needs to be loved. The woman needs to be nurtured, because that's what providers do until she's able to become whole herself. She's been broken. She doesn't trust us. She's been betrayed. She doesn't trust us. We don't protect her. She doesn't trust us. We don't provide for her. She doesn't trust us. But we have the audacity to listen to a man that had severe mommy issues. Man, allow Kevin Samuels' ghost to be buried with the body. And if you guys take this the wrong way or get the what I'm saying, you're part of the problem. It's
Oh,
don't listen to Kevin Samuels because you suffer from daddy issues.
oh
There's nothing
man.
more greater than the woman. She's the first gift to man. She must be protected and provided for by all means necessary. And we have to understand who's a terrorist to the family dynamic. I love y'all. Peace.
Wow. Wow. Hey, you heard that, JV Wins? You're part of the problem, bro. Unless you disagree with him. I don't know.
The only thing that this guy was missing was a cape. That was the only thing that was missing from his wardrobe. There was just a cape.
Yeah.
But and yeah, the tone of the video with the post-apocalyptic vibe with the music also, like, sheesh, bro, get over yourself. But yes, so there you go, ladies and gentlemen, in the Conscious Approach audience, there is a minister, Yahdan Yada. Yahdan Yada. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that. Need a phonetic spelling for that. So please forgive me if I pronounce that incorrectly. But yeah, he went in. He went in on Kevin Samuels. So he took it all kinds of ways with that. But what did you think about that?
Yeah, he was all over the map there. I guess some of it'll come back to me as we, go through the conversation. But I would just have to say that I get where he's coming from, but I think he's off base, right? I think he's off base. And I do know that there are men out there that watch Kevin Samuels content and hang on every word. I do know that. And I also know that those guys that hang on every word do fit the prototypical stereotype of incel. I will say that I know that. now that we've gotten that out of the way, that's the people he should be acknowledging. The people that hang on every word. We don't subscribe to hanging on every word here. Matter of fact, we say that all the time. We do not run a cult. So that means if you do agree with us, whether you agree with us 100% or 90%, there's still a part of it where you do have to take stuff with a grain of salt. Because if I am saying something that you 100% agree with and I could be wrong, then it's a thing where your confirmation bias is what led you to, agreeing with me. And just because you agree with me don't mean that's the ultimate fact. So, but there's facts in what I'm saying. So that's the grains of salt you should be taking. So with all of that being said, Kevin Samuels said a lot of things. There were things that I agree with, and there were things that I disagreed with. But out of the stuff that I would say, out of the majority of his content, I agree with most of it. He had his moments where it's like, all right, bro, but he also had to spice things up, make things extra messy for content and viewership. And by the way, he went from nothing to over 1 million because people wanted to watch entertainment plus some jewels. And I felt like he was providing that. And I feel like anybody that has such an aggressive stance towards Kevin Samuels didn't watch any of his content. And I can say that I was also guilty of feeling like how this guy felt, not with all of that other stuff that we'll talk about later. But there were parts where I would have been parroting those talking points, but that was before I watched his content. So this guy saying that he's a terrorist towards the family system is ridiculously ironic, because that's exactly what he was trying to fix. So this guy, he seems to be speaking from a place of ignorance. I would ask him to do some homework. And if he's so full of himself that he can't watch somebody that he disagrees with, then, you know, he can just have his ignorance then. But if the church tells you to not look into something, or anybody tells you not to look into something, I think you should look into that. And just because you looked into it don't mean you have to believe it. So if you don't agree with Kevin Samuels, I would say watch some of his content and then come back and talk to me. If you have watched it and disagreed, so be it. But this guy is speaking from a place of he didn't really watch it. And if he did, he didn't understand, because he's speaking from a standpoint of ignorance in my book. So how do you feel about this situation, man? Do you agree with Minister Yada Yada? Or do you agree that maybe he's a little bit off base?
Yeah, I think that this is extreme. I think that this is extremist rhetoric. I talk about extremist rhetoric on this channel a lot of times when we bring up certain topics. I think this is an example of that. Okay, so I agree with you that I think he is trying to speak to the audience of people, men in particular, who take Kevin Samuels as gospel.
Right.
But I don't think that's the majority of the population of men.
It is not.
The majority of the population of men understand how to utilize discretion,
right,
and take what parts of the commentary is reasonable and discard the parts of it that are not reasonable.
Exactly.
And that's why I don't really like what this guy is saying.
Mm-hmm.
Certain aspects of what he was saying are valid. There is an uptick of men lacking in masculinity. There is an uptick of men who are lacking in basic skills that they need to be able to bring to the table, such as being a stern provider and being able to uphold their end of the bargain financially. There's an uptick in the frequency of men who fit that build. But again, an uptick does not suggest prevalence, right? An uptick is not the majority. An uptick just means it's increasing. But if you listen to how vitriolic this guy is speaking, he makes it seem as though it's just all of these men lacking in all of these areas running around, not having what it takes, when it comes to being able to uphold their end of the bargain, but then want to blame women for all the problems in relationships. And I do not think that that's what is going on. So I kind of think that he's a bit off in that. And I'm inclined to agree as well that it sounds as though he's taking general talking points and viral clips to formulate the basis of his interpretation. And he's using that to sort of go out there and make videos like this, instead of actually digging into the crates and seeing what Kevin Samuels did on a daily basis. Because on a daily basis, what he was doing was bringing women onto his show and letting them speak for themselves. So men weren't creating the dynamic. It was women who were lending voice to it, Right. So it's like, be accurate with what it is that you're saying. And furthermore, he makes it seem as though Kevin Samuels pulled some sort of elaborate inception and created a situation in which women are to blame for the problems when it's really men. And that's where I would holler foul, because again, all Samuels used to do is bring women onto the show and ask them questions, open-ended. They weren't loaded questions. He didn't lead them. He just asked them open-ended questions. What does this guy need to do what does your guy need to do for a living? How tall does your guy need to be? How much money do you think your guy needs to make in order to be good enough for you?
Goodness.
He asked open questions. They weren't leading questions. They weren't loaded questions. And the women answered them honestly according to how they viewed the situation. So if a woman is saying, I need my guy to be this tall, or to make this much money, or to be able to do this or that, or be perfect, be Mr. Perfection, and then Kevin Samuels combats that by saying, see, that's why you're not married, that doesn't mean that Kevin Samuels destroyed the black family dynamic. Right. That was his way of saying your mentality has a lot to do with why the black family dynamic is deteriorating. So at times, was he leaning into being a bit woman bashing? Yeah. I mean, it ran a spectrum. So at times it did venture into territories where it seemed as though he had a vendetta.
Mm-hmm.
But more often than not, he was letting the women speak for themselves. And that wasn't some sort of mind control. That wasn't some sort of Jedi mind trick that men created. And now women are just saying, this is what we want because men created this. No, women were answering the question honestly. This is what we want. So the question is, why is it that women want that? What created some of these preferential sets that have contributed to the deterioration of the Black family dynamic? In my opinion, it wasn't Kevin Samuels. I can assure you he didn't create that. You can go back historically and look at, certain social programs and entitlement programs that contributed to that. Like, there are certain societal things that contributed to why in the present we have women believing some of the things that they believe and then parroting that speech whenever they get asked a question by somebody like Kevin Samuels, who granted will then use their responses to make his overall point, which is it's deteriorating because of your mindset and mentality. But what this guy's kind of doing is saying Kevin Samuels created it. And he might have reinforced the logic by having these women on here to lend credence to the mentality, but he didn't create it. So I'll just think that this guy is using Kevin Samuels as a tool to curry favor with women.
Oh, absolutely.
As a lot of people in his position tend to do. And it's no surprise or coincidence that this guy is a member of the church, because when it comes to women, the church is almost like the second estate. For some women, it's the first estate. They look at the church and uphold it higher than their own husbands or the government, depending on how much money they're getting from the government, their employer or whomever. So I think that this guy is trying to curry favor, and he's using Kevin Samuels as a bargaining chip to do so.
Yep.
Kevin Samuels didn't create any of these situations. And to suggest that to me is kind of irresponsible. And to do it in this way is extreme rhetoric. All this guy did was bring this woman onto his show and ask them questions, and they answered the questions. It's as simple as that.
100%, bro. And I'll say this in regards to him saying that, women are the prize and that women are the table. I mean, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, if there was a soundboard of all of the stuff that gets these, moderns all hot and bothered, it's those catchphrases. And he's just hitting all the buttons. So yeah, he is playing to a certain audience. He wasn't talking to us, bro. He was talking to those women that he want to pay him. So yeah, you were 100% on that. And I'll say this, for this whole men are the prize, women are the prize. How about we're both the prize? How about that?
Yes. Yeah.
And so, I'll say this though, for Minister Yada Yada Yada. And I'll say this. If in a situation, if a woman's not going to want to be with you unless she feel like she won. Now, if you won something, what did you win? A prize, maybe? So at this point, you can't sit here and say that she's the prize if she don't want somebody that she feels like is a loser. So she wants a winner, so she feels like a winner. Therefore, I think she just won a prize. Now, any man around here knows that if he found a woman, he found himself a good thing. That in itself is a prize. So why can't we look at it both ways? Why does it have to be one or the other? But these are the dangerous rhetoric talking points that are floating around on the internet where it has to be one polar side or the other polar side. It can never be balanced. And so people are choosing extremes instead of looking at everything in between. So for this whole situation here, I feel like this Minister Yada Yada, he feels like a finesse lord. He feels like a scammer, allegedly. Look, I'm not defaming nobody. I'm just telling you what he looks like. And so for me, it looks like game. And yeah, like you said, he's using a very hot talking point as a bargaining chip, a dead man. so he can get some W's in his own personal
Mhm.
life. So I feel like that's kind of weird. So have at it, Mr. Yada, and do your thing. But I do not agree, sir. I do not agree.
Yeah, neither do I. I think that he took it too far.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's trying to suggest that Samuels created this dynamic when he didn't.
Mhm.
What is that word that you use to describe Umar Johnson? He's a grifter. This
Yes,
guy strikes me as a grifter.
yes,
He
he does.
strikes me as the black family dynamic, if you will, relationship equivalent of a grifter in the way that Umar Johnson is the Pan-African movement
Right,
grifter.
right,
So they're kind of the same thing. It wouldn't shock me if this guy had a cash app and he was, often asking for donations and money.
exactly,
But
exactly,
yeah, I don't like any of this. Samuels wasn't always in the right, but he definitely wasn't always in the wrong either. There's
exactly,
definitely a delicate balance that needs to be struck with that, and he's using him and the extreme aspect of Samuels as a way to curry favor with a certain demographic. And I just hope that people don't necessarily fall for it, even though there are and there will be. So
absolutely, 100.
yeah, it's crazy.
Hmm.
Mr. Yada Yada.
Minister
Oh,
Grifter.
for real. Yeah. That's a good name too.